Okairi! Welcome back to my channel, Made Between the Pages. My name is Taylor, and today we're going to be doing a super big book haul. I did a little bit of depression shopping, so we all know how that goes. I bought more books than I usually would over the past like two and a half months, so I have actually a pretty decent collection here, which is pretty rare. I'll tell you a little bit about each book and why I decided to buy it, but I'm gonna keep it pretty brief because I don't want this video to end up being like a bajillion years long, so just keep that in mind. The first couple books in this haul were actually decided for me by Twitter back in August. So I tweeted out a poll asking whether I should treat myself to the Ember and the Ashes trilogy, or what will soon be a quartet, or the Devabad trilogy. And by a very, very small margin, the Ember and the Ashes trilogy won out. So I bought for myself Ember and the Ashes, A Torch Against the Night, and A Reaper at the Gates. Now, I love the feel of these massive floppy paperbacks. I love this edition so much. I'm usually a hardcover person, but something about these, the matte covering to it and the slight shimmer it has, I love the feel of these books, and I wanted these editions specifically. So it actually took me quite a while to purchase these because when I went on Book Depository and a bunch of other websites, there were so many different editions of this book, and the ISBN numbers weren't very clear as to which cover was associated with which ISBN. So I actually asked Sydney over on Sid the Bookworm. She and I, communicate outside of our videos, and she has these editions because she's doing a read-along. And I DM'd her and I was like, can you please send me the ISBN from your book so I know that I'm getting the right ones? And thanks to her, I was able to get my hands on these beautiful copies. And I'm really, really excited. I read An Ember in the Ashes as an audiobook a couple months ago as part of my Retro Reads BookTube challenge that I do on my channel, where I read old BookTube favorites that I might not pick up otherwise. I picked them out of a cup in the back here, and this was from that series. And it's one of the books that made me really glad that I do that series because I loved this book. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars, but I'm just really, really excited to read the next 2 installments in this. This next book is actually quite outside of my usual genres, and that is My Year of Meats by Ruth Ozeki. This book actually came onto my radar because I watched Tammy over on Tammy Tries to Read. I watched her interview with R.F. Kuang, the author of The Poppy War, and at the end of the interview, Tammy asked her to recommend a book, and this is the book that she recommended. And it just really grabbed my attention. So Ruth Ozeki is a Zen Buddhist priest, and she seems to have a really interesting perspective on things because all of her books seem to have this kind of, I don't know how to describe it, almost Murakami Japanese fiction quality to them. And I think that Ozeki's father or mother is Japanese, one of her parents is. So I really have an interesting relationship with Japanese fiction, but this concept kind of caught my eye, and it's supposed to be about I think it's a Japanese woman who spends a year working in the American meat industry. And it's a fiction story, but it seems like there's a lot of parallels between how we talk about meat and how we talk about women. And I'm really, really interested to see how she explores that kind of concept. And I really don't know what to expect from this. So Tammy and I are going to be doing a buddy read of this in January, and I'm really excited because, like I said, I don't usually read stuff like this, and I'm really intrigued. The next 2 books here are middle grade books, and if you don't know, I'm actually doing a read-along for these books on my channel, and that is Moss Flower and Matameo, forgot the name for a second, by Brian Jacks. I'm doing a Redwall read-along on my channel, along with JJ over on The Bearded Bookworm. Both of us loved the Redwall series when we were young, and we wanted to see what we thought about them as adults. So we read Redwall 2 months ago, and we have a live show, which I'll be sure to link down below, where we read it with a group of people on Discord and then did a live show together, and that was really, really fun. So we've decided as a group to every 2 months read another book in the series. So the next book in the series is Mossflower, and as you can tell, I've started this. Your girl is behind on my buddy reads. I'm really calling myself out here in this video, but I'm working on it. So I'm just starting Mossflower, and then the next one is Matameo. The Redwall series is a middle grade series where all of the characters are animals, specifically woodland creatures. And there's this abbey called Redwall where these very peaceful mice live. So they, you know, give shelter to all, and they're pretty much a force of good, you know, in the world. And in the first book, there's a nasty sea rat named Clooney the Scourge who comes and attacks Redwall. And it's kind of, the story takes off from there. And then there's a hero in this world, a hero warrior mouse called Martin the Warrior. And this second book is supposed to be his story. I have plenty of videos with more in-depth thoughts about this series, and there will be more content up when I finish this book, but I'll be sure to link the Discord and any other links down below if you're interested in joining us. It's been really a lot of fun. The next book on this list is another middle grade, which is quite rare for me, and that is Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend. Pretty much everyone where I respect their book opinion or we have similar tastes has just thoroughly enjoyed this. So when I saw it in the bookstore in Japan, it was a little pricey, but I knew that I just had to pick it up. I was supposed to be reading this month, but fun story. It's the end of the month and I haven't gotten to it. But I do really want to pick this up because something lighthearted and magical and whimsical sounds like what I really need in my life right now. What I know about this book is there's a main character named Morrigan Crow who is deemed to be like the unluckiest child in the world, and she's supposed to die, I believe, when she's 11. But instead of dying, she gets whisked away to this magical world of Nevermoor, where she enters a magical school and has to do magical trials. And that just sounds so fun. The next book that I picked up is actually in keeping with the rule that I usually follow, which is to not buy a book until I've read it and know that I want to own it. Now, clearly, I have broken that rule repeatedly in this haul, but this one is The Year of the Witching, and this I did read via audiobook and adored it, so I knew I had to have it on my shelves. Plus, this book is stunning. I mean, look at it. I love the blood droplets here and the yellow border. I knew I had to have this on my shelves as soon as I read it. So I went ahead and purchased it. This is Alexis Henderson's debut novel. It is about a girl named Emmanuel who lives in a very religious colonial town. That's the word I'm looking for. And this town is run by the prophet, who is the head of their religion. And what he says goes, essentially. And women in this town are not supposed to read, they're not supposed to write, and the prophet takes multiple wives. However, there are dark woods nearby where there's supposed to be a nefarious dark power, and those woods start to call to Emmanuel. This book was amazing. It gave me darker Handmaid's Tale vibes. So if that sounds up your alley, I highly recommend you pick it up because clearly I loved it enough to purchase one for myself. I do also talk about this more in my October wrap-up, so I'll be sure to link that above and down below as well. This next book was a pre-order and will come as a surprise to no one, but it finally came in, and that is Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. It's here! Look at how gorgeous this is. I am so excited to have this on my shelves with my other UK hardback editions. I have collected Words of Radiance as like a backlist book. I got that off of Aid Books, I believe. And then I was able to pre-order Oathbringer because I jumped on the Stormlight Archive bandwagon just before that came out. And now I have Rhythm of War. They're also, just for those of you who are also collectors of these hardback editions, The Way of Kings is impossible to find, but thanks to Katie over on Brightness Katie Reads, she told me that they're going to be reprinting The Way of Kings UK hardback, and you can pre-order it, which best believe has been done. But if you're out there and you're collecting these books and really need The Way of Kings, make sure you get on that pre-order. If you're not from the fantasy community or you've been living under a rock, this is the fourth book in the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. And this is like the most hyped book in fantasy booktube right now for good reason. This book is over 1,000 pages. It's like 1,228 pages, it looks like. So it is a big boy, but I cannot wait to jump in. I'm in the middle of a bunch of books. You saw that I just started Mossflower, but I'm really struggling not to drop everything just to pick this up. Like, I'm really, really struggling with that right now. I might do it. I did want to finish reading Oathbringer before I read this book, but avoiding spoilers for this book is like an Olympic sport at this point, so I think it's probably best that I just read it and get caught up so I don't get spoiled accidentally somewhere on the interwebs, and then go back and reread Oathbringer after. I think I might do that. While I'm excited for all of these books, this one just made my heart soar when it finally arrived. These last two books are a little unique as they are Japanese books. The first one is Uchu no Chizu, and this is like the map of the universe, or as you see here, Cosmic Atlas. This book has basically a bunch of pictures of planets and satellites and the universe with explanations about them in Japanese. So Hayato actually really wanted to get this book. We went to a really nice library nearby. Well, not nearby, a couple hours away, but it's a beautiful, beautiful library. And it also has a little bookshop inside. So when he saw this book, he knew he wanted to get it because he wants to learn more about the universe. So we picked this one up. And I also got a book, which I'm sure we're not surprised, but the book that I got is actually a children's picture book, and it's called No. As you can see here. This is the hiragana for No. Now, no is a possessive in Japanese, so it's basically the apostrophe S in English. So watashi means I, and if you add watashi no, it means my. The illustrations in this book are by an artist called Jun Aida, who I have loved for a really long time. He has another book called Michi that is a collection of art that is geared more towards adults, but this book just spoke to me. I don't know, the whimsicalness of it. So as you can see, this is kind of his style of art. Very, very whimsical. We've got some flying fish here. And throughout this book, if you open it, it has some writing here. So this says, watashi no, which is my. Then here it says, okiniri no koto no. So my favorite inside, my favorite jacket's pocket, right? You have like a little castle. So here you'll also see that this ends with no. So it continues to get smaller and smaller and more detailed. So there's something in the picture that you go inside of and see more details of it. And this continues throughout the entire story. And there's just like this picture, there's new things to find every time you look at his art. And I love this book so much. And I'm taking my time going through it. Like every time I drink my coffee or my tea in the morning, I sit down and look at like 2 or 3 pages of this book. And it just brings me so much joy. So if you've never heard of this artist before, I highly recommend picking up or looking at some of his work. It just makes my heart happy, and maybe it'll make your heart happy too. Who knows? Okay guys, I'm a big dum-dum and forgot like 3 books that I bought that I'm actually really excited about. So it's after work now, so if the setting looks different or I look different, that's because I just came back from work. But I wanted to film this so I can include it in the haul because I am really excited about these 3 books. This first book is The Soul of an Octopus. So this was actually brought to my attention from Monica over on Mooney Reads several months ago. She did a review of this book and how much she loved it. So what I know about this is that it's like an in-depth exploration into octopuses. Octopi? Pretty sure it's octopuses, although I grew up my whole life saying octopi. Let me know in the comments down below if I'm right or not. Now, I have a huge fear of the ocean. I think I've mentioned it on my channel a couple times before. I mean, you just don't know what's in that bitch. It's so deep. Like, I'm not about that. But for some reason, I don't know if it's because I have a fear of the ocean or what, but I really enjoy reading stories about it, or books about it, or watching movies about it. I don't know. I mean, as soon as I see the real thing, I'm like, sweetheart, nuh-uh. But when you give me a book about it, I'm really interested. So I've always found octopuses very interesting, and she was raving about how good this book was. So I'm really, really excited to pick this up. It's pretty short, and it's really different from what I usually read. Oh look, it has little pictures of an octopus. That's really cute. I didn't know that. Also, for some reason, this book just feels good in my hands. I don't know. So yeah, I'm really excited to get to this one. Again, following the theme of the ocean, I have The Deep by River Solomon. I talked about this book in my October wrap-up. This is another book that I read via audiobook, and I knew as soon as I was only a small percentage through that I needed to get my own copy. I loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I think it is absolutely beautiful. And there are so many different themes that are touched on in just this small little novella. I really want to set aside some time early next year for just rereads, and I'm definitely going to put this on the list because I don't think I got everything I wanted to or I could get out of it the first time through, so I can't wait to give this a second go. Plus, this book is so beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's so cute and small and compact, and I just love holding it. Great purchase here. And the third book, again, in keeping with the theme, is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. Now, this book is actually kind of bothering me because if you can see at the top, you can see the book. Like, the book is bigger than the dust jacket, and that's really bothering me, so I don't really know what I'm going to do about that, because this was not cheap. So, I don't know, I'm going to have to look into that. But besides that, this book is amazing. Again, read it via audiobook. Knew I needed a physical copy. This book is by Mira Grant, which is actually the other pen name of Shauna Maguire, who's the author of the Wayward Children series. And this book is a horror story about killer mermaids from the Mariana Trench. It's so creepy and atmospheric. Like, you know, for someone who never wants to be anywhere near the Mariana Trench, I felt like panicky reading this book, which doesn't sound like a good thing, but it kind of was because I felt like I was there with the characters, like in the crushing depths of the dark ocean. And that writing, I think, is due to Shauna Maguire's skill with atmospheric writing. If you've read the Wayward Children series, you know she's very good at developing whimsical worlds, and that translates really well to terrifying worlds as well. I think that's all of the books that I forgot this morning. I don't think there are any other ones. I am still waiting for the Fires of Vengeance to come in the mail, the sequel to Rage of Dragons, but that hasn't arrived yet, so that'll be in a later haul. But I think besides that, I think that's all of them. That concludes my book haul. I know we had a lot of different types of books in this book haul, which is kind of refreshing, I think, for my channel. So let me know down below if any of these have caught your eye, if you're interested in some of them after seeing them here, or if you've already read them and there are some that you really think I should prioritize. Let me know down below. I'd love to chat. But for now, I'm gonna head out. Jane!